This
is part two
is Porn
of
Talk.
Michael Clegg's story after
Here is your
he had
host,
someone
Eric
jump
Zuzack.
off a bridge on a highway in front of his car and ran them over. This is his story of tragedy to triumph. Continued.
And sharing the struggles, because guess what? Whether companies believe it or not, they're inheriting all of these things, baggage, addictions, all the things that we're bringing those things to work.
Yes.
Just like schools inherit troubled kids that don't have active parental guardians at home, the workplace is now inheriting mental illness. And I don't know if you know this, but there's a lot of mentally ill people because we all had struggles and challenges in our childhood that have never, ever been deeply discussed at any level. And
Clegg, you brought up so many incredible points. And one thing you talked about is reframing what happened. You can't change what happened, but changing the way you see it, the story you tell yourself about it, you can change. And I can't help but think all is in divine order. That person chose to end their life and really include another person.
Yeah.
Like that person didn't.
And more than me, because there were people that were driving beside and behind me that saw it happen.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine what that has done to them.
Clegg, that person chose to include all these people in his death. And I got to say, all is in divine order. And what good has come of this? How have you been able to frame this positively?
So, the meaning that I took away from this is from my perspective, the accident itself, as I mentioned, I do leadership development. I work with clients and individual organizations, some large, some small. And most of us have to go to work every day to survive, right? And there's one thing, and I've always taught this, I've created these, what I call bad boss personas. And each one of these personas have a different bad behavior. And so in this and going through that mental loop of who is he, is he a dad? Is he a father? Is he a brother? Is he best friend? Where does he work? Who's his boss? Really got me thinking, how can I connect the two? And that's when this whole idea around conscious leadership really started changing like my entire thought process and world. Because you got to understand, I'm a Gen Xer. I'm now 51. And, I was brought up in the world where you leave your crap at the door. No more. Millennials and Gen Zs are not leaving their crap at the door. For anyone that's been in a workplace anytime in the last decade, we know that. And so we can either bury our heads as leaders, or we can actually start treating them like humans and caring about them and helping them find the answers. And one of the things that I will be a living example of is, the idea, the mindset of becoming the future version of myself. That is what pulled me out of the hole that the accident put me in.
Yeah.
This whole idea of hope, which I used to have a saying, hope is not a strategy. And I still believe that. And I still say that from time to time, but hope is necessary. Hope is necessary to have something to believe in. And I hear it all the time. Like, I don't believe in anything. One, you do have to help yourself. I can't want it for you. But the one thing that I'm utterly convinced of, that we all have a unique ability. Doesn't matter what it is, but the overwhelming majority of us have no idea what that unique ability is.
Yeah.
So, I take this through over a 6-month period of how can I help people find their purpose? Because one, I'm in staffing. So
Yeah.
I get to talk to a lot of unemployed people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get to talk to a lot of clients. And so as I'm able to integrate this work leadership development with this, oh, by the way, humanizing conscious leadership, like you become you become the full person that you're meant to be. And we
Yeah.
all have a purpose.
Yeah.
And we have to figure out what that is. And most of us, God, we're not even taught how. I was about to say balance a checkbook. Does anyone even have a checkbook anymore? But balance budget. We're never even taught that in school. We're definitely not taught how to find their purpose.
Yeah. For
That's
sure.
masked with, hey, I'll let you take this elective to see if you like it. Like even in college, I mean, we're taught none of that.
It sounds to me like this tragedy, because you said prior to this happening that you had pretty much stopped dreaming. And so this forced you to start dreaming again and really rebuild your life, right?
Absolutely. And I truly believe that Dr. Hardy is going to take this whole future ideal and take it to another level. I do believe that becoming your future self is a trauma recovery tool. I'm sure
Right.
there are many other tools. I'm not a PhD in that area. What I speak to is what happened to me.
Yeah.
And I know how low, how bad, how awful I was for several months. And some people have been this way for years after events. And the one thing I've learned through this whole trauma recovery research that I've been doing is that 70% of people are going to experience trauma at some level in their lives. And I'm not talking about stubbing your toe, running down the hallway, like real trauma. And that's absolutely frightening. So 70% of your workforce is either already experienced that trauma or is going to be experiencing trauma. And
Yeah.
leaders need to figure that out. And so my hope is that my messaging will help them bridge that gap so that people can become, because without connection, as you were talking about earlier, none of this is possible.
Right.
And so, this tool of becoming your future self is absolutely real. It's not woo
It is
woo. It's
absolutely
not
real.
BS. It is legit. Like I said, I was a freaking average Joe, but I know now that I have so much more to give. And I'm so like, look, motivation, inspiration, that stuff dies. That stuff burns out. Right. And that's where people get disconnected with what that future self should look like. Because
Mhm.
once again, the feeling. But at first you do get excited about this future and then you lay out the pathway. Right. And you figure out how it fits in your individual life. That hope does continue the process, continues the steps. Because most people say, well, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to have an end result. Well, the process doesn't make the goal. The goal, right, should be where we start. The
Right.
process should be figured out. The pathway should be figured out based on the goal. That's where the pathway should come from.
In the book Atomic Habits, and he says, super popular book, great book. In Atomic Habits, he says, true habit change is identity change. That future self, and you said about using the future self to overcome addictions. Absolutely. Like I said, I stumbled across that accidentally. Now I actively use it with clients and have them come up with, once we get through a lot of work, have them come up with a superhero name or their superpowers. Mine are being bold, brave, and confident because I was none of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, no, you do. And you have to change your identity. And here's a spoiler alert. You're going to lose some relationships over it. Just are. I mean, I have buddies that, make fun of this whole future you program idea. Like genuinely make fun of it. They laugh. But as I say, just like when I told my wife, right, that I was going to be on a TEDx stage and I was going to write a book, she laughed. She's like, she did. She goes, oh, you're being serious? I was like, yep. And I challenge you, whatever your goal is, if the person that you care about the most doesn't laugh, your goal is not big enough.
I love it.
And I mean that. I truly mean that.
I like the question that you asked earlier. How can I land a TEDx talk in 5 months rather than 5 years? And that was an extraordinary event because on average, it takes 86 applications to land a TEDx talk. And you got it the first time, your first one, you did it.
So
Maybe I should have played the lottery that day. I don't know. But
I love the question that you asked, though. You asked, what would have to happen for me to be that, for that to be true for me to land that TED Talk? And so I would suggest to the people that are listening, what would have to happen for me to overcome whatever the adversity is? What would have to happen for you to overcome sex or porn addiction? What would have to happen for you to overcome alcoholism? What would have to happen for that to be true? I love that question. What would have to happen for that to
yeah,
be true?
absolutely. No, it's a powerful question. It's one I start with, and I'll give you an example. One of my participants in the Future You program, we were having a conversation before the kickoff of the program, and he was a little embarrassed to tell me what his impossible goal was. And I was like, dude, it's okay. Like I'm going to be here along the way with you. Like I kind of need to know what it is in order to help, put the program together for you. And he said, I want to be a professional golfer on the Champions Tour. Now he's not a professional golfer. He's not even a scratch golfer. And I was like, wait, like seriously? And I giggled. I giggled. I'm not gonna lie. And I was like, wow, like that's absolutely awesome. And I said to him, and I said, do you know how you're gonna do it? And he goes, I have no idea. I'm hoping to figure that out in the program. I said, okay. I said, well, I'm gonna ask you one question I ask everybody. What would have to be true in order for you to achieve that? He's like, well, I don't know. I said, no, you know. Like let's really dig in and think about that. And he said, well, he goes, I gotta become a better golfer. And I said, yeah, but you've also bettered. He's a pretty athletic guy. He was a college baseball player, so it's not like he's starting from no athleticism. Um, but he's been living this life for the past 25 years, working hourly jobs here and there, and just wandering around trying to figure out what he wanted to do with his life. And but he's gotten like 15 strokes better in the last 2 years of playing golf, just by himself, going to the range a few times a week and playing a couple times on the weekends. And so I said to him, I said, no, let's dig in more. What else? He said, I don't know. I probably need to hire a coach, swing coach, somebody that knows how to get someone that's been there, done that. I said, okay, what else? He's like, I don't know, man. You're supposed to tell me. I was like, no. I'm here to ask the questions. The answers has to come from you. And so he goes and he lists like 6, 7, 8 things, better equipment, because his clubs are like 20 years old. You'll get better by default just because the equipment has changed, right? I mean, that could be another 5 to 7 strokes. And so anything is possible. Doesn't mean he's going to achieve that. But think about the progress that he's going to make. Think about the benefits of the progress that he makes. Think about the relationships of people that he's going to build and the connections that he's going to build. Like this could be the avenue of him actually finding his future self, because it's not so much about the impossible goal. There are very few paths that would actually get him to be on a professional golfer. I mean, he would have to be roughly about 12 strokes better than where he is right now to do that. 10 to 12. But if he starts competing and he starts getting better and that momentum starts building and he meets connections, he meets new people, someone somewhere is going to love him because he's an unbelievable human being. And they're going to go, hey, what else do you do? He's going to be like, I drive a truck. Well, hey, would you want to do whatever it is? And that's how things happen. But he is actively pursuing something. And let's be honest. If he doesn't achieve that, but he gains new relationships that actually helps propel him forward in life, like, isn't that what it's all about anyways? But what if he does do it? How amazing of a story. And you want to know what happened, what gave him this thought and this idea?
Hmm.
He saw Instagram, Facebook, something, a story of a 71-year-old man that had just qualified for the Champions Tour.
Awesome.
And he's like, dude, I'm 20 years younger than this guy. Like, I'm pretty athletic. I could be really good at this game. And it wasn't until he saw that story till he said, hey, maybe it is possible for me. Think about most of your audience probably knows who Roger Bannister is. Okay. And those that don't, Roger Bannister is the first person on record. Allegedly, there are others before him, but the first person on record that broke the 4-minute mile because it wasn't humanly possible. Within the year of him breaking that, hundreds of years go by. No one breaks this record. He breaks the record in like, what was it, 1954 or something like that.
Mhm.
By the end of 1955, like something like 56 people had broken that barrier because now they believed that it was possible. So if you don't think that your mindset matters, there are stories littered throughout history of mindset changes.
Yeah.
Did the Wright brothers really, like, I'm guarantee you people thought they were nuts.
I agree. The impossible goal. A lot of people that would be listening to this may be thinking that whatever the circumstances they're in right now, they can't overcome it. They may think it's impossible, that they can't break the addiction or whatever it might be, that it's impossible. But it is possible. People do it every day. And I love your story. Thank you so much for sharing it. I can see you transformed and listening and talking with you. But what would you say before we wrap up here? Someone came to you that was really struggling with addiction or some type of trauma in their life, and they'd fallen into some type of addiction. What questions would you ask that person?
Well, I think the first thing we would ask is where do they enjoy life? Because I think that's important. And if they're in a very low spot, like where I was, 15, 16, 17 months ago, I would have answered that question with, bro, I just rolled over top of somebody. I ain't enjoying any part of my life. And I understand that. But the follow-up question to that would be, where have you enjoyed life? And I would go all the way back to being a kid, where I've enjoyed life. And there is answers in there because we do stuff every day that is our unique ability. And the problem with that whole theory is the word unique. People look at themselves because of the self-limiting beliefs, which are the lies we tell ourselves, and go, and just like I do, I'm an average Joe. I'm no different than anybody else. I'm the same dude, just like every other guy, dad on the street. But we get hung up on this word unique. And it's not about we're so unique because a lot of other people have the same unique ability. So I wish we would change that name a little bit to, I think Patrick Lencioni calls it your working genius. Whatever it may be, we all have it. And so I would help people dig into where in their lives they have gained energy by doing anything. Could have been writing, it could have been painting, it could have been working on a car, it could have been landscaping, it could have been anything. Right? It could be talking to people. Maybe they're a coach in the making, but everybody's experience or experiences will benefit somebody else. So that alone will help someone else. And there is tremendous value. What I've learned is the more value I give to others, the more freedoms I get in return. And, um, you know, that's the first step. They have to figure out where life has brought them joy.
Thank you so much, Clegg. If someone wants to reach out to you and learn about your services, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, the easiest is probably just on LinkedIn, which is Michael, my middle initial B, Clegg, Clegg.
Thank you for being with us, Michael. We are out of time. Michael Clegg's story reminds us that even in the darkest moments, we have the opportunity to rediscover purpose, reconnect with who we were meant to become.
Thanks for listening. If you're struggling with porn or sex addiction, reach out to Eric at powerfuleric.com.